That's what Furaha's doing.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the Pervasive Media Studio Lunchtime Talk. These talks are live every Friday at 1 p.m, both here in the building and live online. Hi for joining us online. So whether you're in Bristol or you're far away, you can join in the conversation. My name's Martin O'Leary. I'm the head of studio here. I'm a white man in my 40s, long hair and a beard, wearing a kind of baby blue wool jumper, which is actually kind of too hot today. Every Friday, we throw open the doors of the Pervasive Media Studio for Open Studio Friday, offering you the chance to spend some time in our space by hot desking alongside our residents and staff from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Especially big welcome to anyone who's new to the studio. Can anyone who's new to the studio put your hand up? Okay, we've got a few today. Welcome. This bit is for you. What is the Pervasive Media Studio? We're a diverse and collaborative community exploring creativity and technology, everything from comedy to coding and product development to performance art. And we're a partnership between Watershed, where we are right now, UE Bristol and the University of Bristol, and we're funded by Arts Council England. And what we do is we offer studio space, including desks, meeting rooms, events and opportunities, all for free to our residents as part of a spirit of generosity and mutual exchange. And most of all, we're a space for people to take risks with embryonic ideas and to make some time for collaboration. So just a few notes before we begin. Please do feel free to move around, grab a cup of tea or coffee. Please eat the donuts and samosas. There are so many of them. I am really worried about what we're going to do with all of that food. We have a quiet space just next to this space, so if you need to take a break at any point, just to my left, your right, around the corner there's a little room. It's got some sofas and beanbags. We've stolen some of the beanbags, but there's still more. It's fairly well soundproofed. If you need to just take a moment, feel free to go in there. We're not expecting a fire drill today. If you hear a fire alarm, it's probably real. So the fire exits are at the other end of the studio. Again, my left, your right, at either end. But if there is a fire alarm, one of the studio team will direct you to them, and there are a lot of us here today. So that's going to be okay. And finally, there are accessible toilets, including baby change, and we do have a baby this week, so it's good that I'm saying that, in the corridor over there next to the kitchen. There will be a Q&A at the end of the talk, so if you're watching online, you can pop your questions into the YouTube chat. Lawatim is here. He'll be your voice in the room today. If you're in the building, please raise your hand, and we'll send around a microphone so the folks at home can hear what you're saying. You can get news on all of our future talks by heading to watershed.co.uk/studio, at Pervasive Media Studio at mastodon.social on Mastodon, at pmstudiouk.bsky.social on Blue Sky, or at Pervasive Media Studio on Instagram. And there's a great program of talks already up there waiting for you to check them out. So today's talk is part of Home, which is a year of making, experiencing, and sharing ideas of home. So throughout 2025, Watershed is hosting a program of films, immersive art, talks, and workshops that will explore the many different ways in which people find, make, imagine, long for, and escape home. And you can find out more about that whole program at watershed.co.uk/home. All right, that's enough preamble. Our speakers for today are Furaha Asani and Tony Bhajam. Furaha is our research lead here at Watershed, and sadly she is leaving us after... Okay, it's going to be one of those talks after nearly 5 years. So today she's going to be in conversation with our talent development producer, Tony.
I'm not going anywhere.
And they're going to cover a range of topics, including many of the projects they've both worked on over the years and how the theme of home has played out for them, both in the overlap of professional and personal lives. I'm really excited about this one, so please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Furaha and Tony.
All right, Bob.
Hi, Tony.
How
I'm
you
good,
doing?
thanks. I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
Well, not great, actually. Like, this is such a bittersweet moment for us today. I'm so excited to sit and chat to you, and I'm so excited that you're off and out into the world. But I cannot lie and tell you that I'm not absolutely distraught that you're going. I'm going to do my best not to burst into tears today, everybody. I'm going to be nice to you today, but you should know that my self-defense mechanisms are going to kick in at some point, and I'm going to get really passive-aggressive with you before you leave.
It's fine.
Just so that you know.
Not the first time?
Hello, everybody. In a completely outrageous move for this starting a conversation with Furaha as she leaves, I'm going to talk about myself for a bit. Hello. Firstly, I'm wearing these boots today at special request of Furaha. I'm not just glitzing around the office. And then I worked my way up from there. This is my homage to Furaha for the day. Furaha, I'm going to miss your wonderful two-piece sets and your matching nails. What nails have you got, Anthony? Nice, very nice. Lovely, lovely. I'm really going to miss seeing that in and around the studio. So my name is Tony. I'm one of the producers here in the studio. I started working here in about 2020. And one of the first things that I ever did was stick my nose into HR after an interesting recruitment experience, and in doing so, did a bit of work alongside the head of HR and some other members of the team to rethink some of our recruitment strategies. We had to think about how shortlisting happened and how application processes take place and what eligibility criteria are and stuff like that. One of the things was that we tried to meet with all eligible candidates. All of this is to say that me and Furaha first met during a short 20-minute chat on Zoom back in, I think, 2021?
2020.
2020. Do you remember that chat?
I do.
Yeah. I don't know, like that was us building an experience, and you were a person that we recruited through that piece of work.
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts on it?
Yeah, sure. So I wanted us to start this conversation by highlighting Watershed's inclusive recruitment process, which has been iterated over the years, just because I think I've said this quite openly and a number of times, is that I don't necessarily believe that without that process, I would have been here just based on my CV. And I have an impressive CV, if I say so myself.
She does.
However, I was trained as a biochemist and researched in respiratory immunology up until the postdoc level, and then pivoted into public engagement. And if you know anything about what happens here in the studio, that is quite different to what we do. So we're focused on action research, creative technology, and thinking about climate action in creative hubs. And so kind of bringing those two things together might not have worked on paper, but having, reading this job ad that said, hey, if you meet our minimum requirements for this job, we are going to have a chat with you, and we're going to give you a task to do that, that you can use to show yourself in the best light. And I don't want to say prove to us, but through that task that we carefully design, you'll be able to show us whether or not, we can take you to the next phase. And in that chat, I presented work that actually I had done with a friend of mine who's here today, Dr. Leanne Renault, and another friend, Dr. Hannah Teraisingham Robbins. And based on that work that I presented, I was then invited to the shortlist, and then I blew you away
in
that interview. And then, that's basically, now here we are 5 years later. But again, just to say, on paper, I may not have been the person for the job, but I think, right now on paper and anecdotally, I want to say that I did the best that I could, and it was good.
I think you bring such a richness to this role, and the fact that you came to us from a completely different context, and although your background was in research, it was in research in a very different way to the way that we approach it here in the studio. And I think you've done an amazing job of it. Some of the projects that you've led, and we'll get onto them in a sec, I think have been really amazing, and I don't think they could have happened in the way that they happened without your expertise coming from somewhere else and kind of bringing that space to it. How did you find the process of getting to grips with Watershed's research project and articulating the kind of the complicated nature of the way that we work here?
So I remember actually one of my first tasks was to kind of consolidate and then articulate what research means in Watershed. So I'm not the one that started, obviously, the research, basically research work stream or work strand in Watershed. That has been happening in the organization even before Pervasive Media Studio was a thing nearly 2 decades ago. But my job was kind of to, draw all of these threads together and then be able to reflect back to the organization and to our partners what that means for us. And my starting point, I remember writing this draft, and Jo, who is the executive producer of the studio, or at that time that was her title, I remember her reading the draft, and her feedback to me was, this is great what you've written. At the same time, it says a lot about what we're not. And it would be great if you could kind of reframe this into what we are and what we do and why you think what we do constitutes research. And in all honesty, I think it probably took me a year and a half to fully understand for myself and to get past trying to prove, especially because I have an academic background, trying to prove that what we do here is rigorous. And, I could see the value, I could see the worth in it, of course, and not just in the work itself and in the outputs, but in the people. But I think I had this hang up of, oh my goodness, is this content refable? Is this, how do we, a lot of our partners are academics, how do I have a conversation with them and get them to value this the way the community values it? And in all honesty, that's something that I had to drop. And again, 5 years later, I think now we've all come to this shared understanding in the studio. I want to believe that we are a community of practice. We do action research. Our strength is in iterating processes. We do produce accessible outputs. And we have an amazing portfolio that spans as I said, way before I joined, from the wider organization, way before Pervasive Media Studio was a thing. We are a beacon in the Southwest region. We have international partners. We have loads of people who reference the work we do. We have some people who don't reference the work we do, but we know they know about the work we do, and we know that they tap into it. So citational practice, strongly encourage people to do the right thing. But my point is that we do have a really, really strong portfolio, and I think right now, as I leave, sorry, I'm going on and on, I think we're in a really, really good place of understanding what research is to us and where our strengths lie. And I don't think we're any longer in a place where we need to say, well, this is not what we are, we know what we are, basically.
Do you think you're leaving the studio with a set of research questions? Is there a central question or an idea or something that you're leaving us with?
Yes, so when I already knew that I was going to be leaving, one of my final tasks was to kind of rejig or refresh the research strategy that I had the one that I had just described to you that was published in spring of 2021. So one of my final tasks was to give it a refresh. And that evolved over a 6-month period from trying to just refresh that strategy to co-creating a set of research questions with a leadership team in the studio. So I'm not leaving here with just one question, but with a set of questions or prompts that can serve as kind of guidance for how the research strategy evolves outside of my own head and my own thinking.
It's really interesting to hear you kind of reflect on your journey as moving from academic research into this as a research space, and kind of what it means to be a researcher. Because I think we spend so much of our time in the studio supporting residents to see themselves as researchers as well, and kind of that same. I talk about research with a capital R and research with a little r. I know some of the academics in the space are not a fan of that. Come and talk to me about it later. But it's really interesting to see that kind of parallel in your work, and as you reconsider what it means to produce research and what outputs for research can be and could be.
Yeah, I think another thing is kind of, so across the research landscape, whether within academia or outside, there's a hierarchy that is placed on knowledge production. And this is further confounded by things like geographical location. So knowledges that are produced in the so-called global south versus the global north, and of course that will intersect with race, with gender, with how many outputs have been produced, with so many things, right? And I think that everything that I've described thus far is as a result of how knowledge production is hierarchicized. Is that a word? Let's just accept it. Yeah. So yeah, that basically that hierarchy, and I think that there is an investment in maintaining that hierarchy. I think that the way many of us, myself included, have been trained is to reinforce that hierarchy. You see, our little baby girl agrees with me as well. And I think, part of our work here has been thinking about how much energy we need to invest in. Again, there's that thing of constantly, are we proving our worth? And I'm not saying that I can't speak for all of us, but basically we have had in different words, we have had conversations around how much energy, how much time do we want to invest in constantly trying to prove our worth? What battles do we need to fight so that we can get more funding to continue doing this work? And at what point do we just accept that, hey, you know what, this is what we're great at, this is the capacity that we have, these are the resources and this is the power that we have, and therefore this is what we're going to do. So that is not, I think that is something that is going to continuously evolve over time. Because tomorrow the studio may decide that it wants to become an official research institute. Perhaps that will not happen tomorrow. Perhaps that's in the next 2 decades. Perhaps in the next 2 decades, academia as we know it will cease to exist. Who knows? But for this moment in time, this is where we find ourselves basically.
We're going to come back to some of the projects which some of this work shows up in a sec. But before that, I'd love to ask, so that's very kind of the research element of your role. Are there other elements of your role which have been particularly joyous or ones that you've enjoyed or anything like that?
Yeah, so honestly, the best part, and just to say, of course, we knew the questions that we were going to, we discussed what questions would be asked. But I thought it was very important. It was very important to say this, and I mean it most genuinely, is that the best part of my job has been my team. I have absolutely loved, managing my team. I've absolutely loved growing with them. I respect each and every one of them. And when I think about, I have managed a couple of people for a very short period of time, but from when I started up till now, I think about you and Vanessa, I think about Emma, I think about Zoe and Rachel. And I'm so proud of each and every one of you. And I'm so grateful for the things that you've taught me. I'm so grateful that you trusted me and, kind of opened yourselves up to being managed by me, even though you all had more of a grounding in this sector than I did. And I am really grateful that I walk away now, that sounds so dramatic, with friendships and, with the knowledge, I hope, because you may ask them later and they'll be like, oh, I don't know what she was saying. But I hope, that I walk away with you all knowing how invested I have been and I continue to be in you as people and in your careers. And I'm proud of you all. And, I love you all, honestly, I do. And thank you very much. You know that it's not been the easiest year for me. And I think that there's something about the way in which we have gotten to know one another and gotten to appreciate how we like to work, how we don't like to work. And we've made it work. We've really made it work and we've grown together. So I would say that for me, this has been an amazing era, honestly. And I want to believe that has been reflected, in the studio, in the work that we've produced, in the ways in which we've engaged with the community. And I hope that in some way there is a legacy that we leave in the studio as an era. Because by the way, when I say this, some members of the research team have moved on and some still remain in the organization. But I'm talking specifically about what this research team has been, this particular configuration over this past 5 years. I hope that we leave a legacy here. And, I'm happy if part of that is embodied, if part of that is not beyond the outputs, is the people actually, myself included.
Furaha, you've been one of my fiercest cheerleaders of all time, I think, in this space. I've done a whole bunch of personal growth whilst I've been here. So Furaha was my line manager. I was part of the research team once upon a time. We worked on Bristol and Bath Creative R&D together, which I'll come back to in a sec. But I think with your support, I went on a bit. One day I'll do my own lunchtime talk. I'll tell you all about it. But I've had a fair bit of personal growth in this space, and it was definitely conditions which you created for me to be able to do that and have the space that I needed to do it whilst working on some of our projects and programs like that. I really thank you for it. really deeply.
Okay.
Some of your team are here today. Team, want to say hello? Anybody? No? Look, I meant to make the invite at the start. There is a whole bunch of people that have come especially to see Furaha today. Please do chip in. Let's have a chat. I should have said that at the outset. I've got a mic. I'll send Martin around with it. So I mentioned Bristol and Bath Creative R&D, which is a nice way for us to come onto the projects and things like that we've been talking about. Are there project highlights? Are there things that you've enjoyed? Is there spaces? So you talked about being able to bring your practice and your ways of working to this space and to reconsider what we mean by the capacity and the resource and the power to generate work, or kind of your expertise in research and how you reconfigure those into this space. How do you think they've played out in these projects?
So I think when I started, we had a project that was winding down, which was the Southwest Creative Technology Network, and another that was just kind of like fully ramping up in its delivery, which is Bristol and Bath Creative R&D. And all of those projects meant that I had the opportunity to be involved in selection processes, be involved in writing calls, be involved in thinking about how to action inclusion beyond rhetoric, supervising and supporting the production of different kinds of frameworks, thinking about how we could, just produce work that isn't just relevant to what we do in the studio and to our partners, but could maybe also have ripple effects in the rest of the organization. And I think what I hope I have brought into these processes is, and this is not to say rigor did not exist. That's not what I'm saying at all. I do think that there's a particular brand of rigor. It sounds a bit pretentious, but there's a particular brand of rigor. I will be in a room, and I think everybody who's here can testify that I will ask difficult questions, not in a dickhead. Sorry, not in an inappropriate way, but in a way that really gets us thinking about what the impact of what we're doing will be, and yeah, I kind of think if there's one thing that I can sum up that I have, if there's one way in which I can sum up what I hope I've done quite effectively, is ask questions that get us to critically think about and reflect on what the impact of our work will be. And that in itself means that I hope has kind of circled back and got us thinking about our processes and our design and our participants.
Hit the nail on the head. That's what I was going to. So I think one of the things that we both enjoy about work is geeking out over process. And actually, so we talked about capacity. One of the things that came out of Bristol and Bath Creative R&D was the Inclusion Framework for Change, which is a piece of work which I built with Furaha support. But it was all kind of one of the key questions in it meditates on where power comes from, and kind of where power sits. And it's not all just in who's around the table and who gets the sign off and the rubber stamping and things like that. There's something about the process that we take to get to that point. And I think that's something, feels like it comes out of what you're saying there about actually what questions are we asking to get to where we want to be, and what are we trying to get to, and how do we build towards those things instead. So, yeah, I really love it. So yeah, I mean, to carry on talking about projects, and I really like the interdisciplinary nature of the work here, but also the teams and things that you pull together. Your work draws on all the varied skill sets of the people around you. You've mentioned the team already. Are there any other projects that you think demonstrate that? Yeah, definitely. So I mean, we did, and there is a lunchtime talk that I did towards the end of last year. We ran an inquiry last year called Alternative Technologies, a Just Transition. And we were thinking about kind of within that process, using some other processes such as random selection that we've used in the studio before, self-nomination processes, which again, we've used before in the studio, and centering voices of people in our ecosystem whose voices have been marginalized in conversations around climate action. So I feel like something that I really appreciate, and I don't know if I'm answering the question that you asked, but something that I appreciate is the fact that as we have evolved over the years, that I've been here at least is, and I know again it was happening before I joined, is
that we always tend to draw on processes that we've used in the past and then iterate them. And so it feels like, and there will be, this is a plug for a report that Dr. Jack Lowe is writing for us.
You're always welcome.
That will be published soon. And it's kind of, you can see threads joining up the work that has happened in the studio, starting from the React program that was over a decade ago. I think over a decade ago, right? React, yeah. So there is kind of this through line, is the word, right? That kind of joins up the thinking and has been influenced and affected by things that have happened in different departments within Watershed, and also the ways in which technology has evolved. So not just, and I would say also maybe geopolitics as well. So there's quite a nice, if we were to map, which the map will be published in Jack's report, if we were to map things out, you kind of see what the evolution looks like, and that's really, it's very interesting, and it's, it's moving to see.
Yeah. How do you think, because those things aren't easy to resource, those types of, like how do we go about equipping people to be able to do that sort of work?
So I think that there's two things that need to happen, which kind of are happening on different scales, but we need more of. I do think that grassroots workers are already doing this work. Just because we're not hearing about work doesn't mean that it's not getting done. So I think, funding the grassroots is really important. And I'm going to use that to kind of tie to what happens here for those who might not be aware of how the funding landscape and how funds are allocated from research councils is that you need to be, and let's just say like an academic or official research institute to be able to directly access funding from research councils. And so a lot of the work that we do here is because we are trusted by a lot of our academic partners who then write us into bids, and in that way we're able to get some funds. And our model always includes some kind of redistribution of the funds that we get. And that could be in the form of funding prototypes, funding teams to do their own R&D, paying people for their time. We always look for ways to give out some money. So if you think about, again, people who are already doing work at the grassroots, and then organizations like ours, even some bigger organizations, some smaller organizations who are not official research institutes, every one of us is vying for limited resources, which is the case everywhere, right? But when it comes to R&D, you have, and I don't want to name the funders just in case I make a mistake, because I need to refresh my own awareness of this, but you have a limited number of funders who would be willing to give significant funds to our organizations. And then again, if you think about how do grassroots movements and tiny collectives, how do they access funds as well? So all of this is to say, regardless of the level, we need money. That's the truth. We need more money. So if there's anybody in any of the research councils, with access to purse strings, give us the money. We do good work here. There are, ask and you shall receive, hopefully, and again, I just want to acknowledge that we still here have relative privilege because we do get, we, as I said, we're trusted by loads of people with access to these funds who are based in universities and in other powerful institutes. At the same time, I think that having a direct access to different kinds of research funds to fund specifically research would be a great thing for us and also for these smaller collectives and like grassroots groups.
Absolutely.
Basically.
I feel like it comes down to trust, doesn't it? You got to trust people to know that they're asking the right questions to empower. Sorry, not to use that word. To do the work that they want to do to get to the answers that they're trying to get to. People know themselves best.
Yeah.
if ever you come to me and they're like, oh, we've got this funding, we don't know, I'm like, give it away. Just give it to them. I think it's a really powerful way to work.
Yeah.
But then working with funders comes with all of these, it goes back to actually what are outputs and what does it mean to be a researcher, what does it mean to produce a research output, and things that you can point at. That was something, working with you on Bristol and Bath Creative R&D was a really great opportunity to be able to what actually we're aiming for, what is the output of this? Is it about a paper that they write, or is it about the network that a person produced, or the skills that they developed, or some of the questions they got to ask and how it got them to the whole next set of questions?
Yeah. And then the interesting thing is, when you look at the way R&D works across, so not just in academia, but people will walk away with different things. Yeah. And we're very lucky that the people we tend to work with have been our friends who have invested in us. But you often see it, right? It's a tale as old as time is, people will come together, groups will come together to do work, produce fantastic work, and then the people who are attached to official institutes will write papers about the work that has been done. And that has not always been equitable because, people are able to build careers. And I'm not saying that I think people can build their careers based on this work whilst doing it equitably. But still, I think there's always going to be that power dynamic and that imbalance in who walks away with what. Because building a network is really great and it's fantastic for the community. And at the same time, someone who didn't perhaps pitch in as much effort will write a book about the work that's been done, and that will give them access to apply for millions more, right? So the network is fantastic, but then on this end, somebody who came out with a paper or something like that. And again, please don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that these things are mutually exclusive. I think that you can do this kind of work. You can co-produce with your community ethically. I think I'm just trying to basically point out some problematic dynamics that I think we're all aware are very present in research.
Absolutely. Thank you. So today's talk is within the theme of home. So I wanted to talk about home a little bit. And I was reflecting, I was just doing my prep, my piece of paper that you can't see, anybody. And one of the things I love about you is how you make this space feel like home so much. The little, I don't know if you all spotted, but we have a little seasonal table piece decorations in and around the space, and they're all Furaha's doing, and she changes them up every season. And it's become, I didn't realise how unconsciously it's become a way that I mark time throughout my year. So I don't know how I'm going to have to go back to looking at a calendar or something. Although I would say that last year, everybody, Furaha got out the pumpkins before August bank holiday. I hadn't been to Carnival and we were into autumn over here. And I think that's absolutely outrageous. So I'm glad that that is not happening again. I will also never ever listen to a Mariah Carey song in the same way, ever again. I really love it.
Queen of Christmas.
I guess, so if we're talking about a sense of home, right, there used to be language which we used in the arts and in inclusion in HR and things about bringing your whole self to work. And I know that we've moved away from that language, but there's something about the way in which you bring personal and professional and political things into the space. And I guess, I don't know, there's like a really admirable vulnerability around that. I really admire it. I guess, and so then to go with that, then we've been asking about what home means, and I wondered if you had any thoughts on that. I know.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I just want to ask, Bridget, can I please ask you to get my fan from my desk? It's either on my desk or in my bag. I just feel my face heating up a little bit, so I just want to make sure that I am.
Good.
Yeah. I'm okay. So I think when I
tissue, but I bought it for that very reason.
Thank you. Don't worry, everyone. I'm okay. I think it's just because I am so. Thank you. Thank you, my dear. So it's not a secret to those who have been working with me over the past 5 years that home is quite a complex concept for me. So when I moved to Bristol, I was just very quickly, and trigger warnings for the hostile environment and for issues around immigration. When I moved to Bristol, I was involved in a court case with the Home Office because I was facing deportation. And that court case lasted from 2019 to 2021. Actually, we were in you and Zoe may remember this, we were in a workshop online when I got the news that I received my visa.
I do remember.
And so that really opened up new ways, I guess, of thinking about home for me and stripped away others. The way that I can, in the time we have, the way that I can describe it, or yeah, let's just say that. The way that I can describe it is, I kind of think that one of the reasons why I'm so invested in making things homey and cozy is because I actually struggle to feel a sense of home. And so it's kind of like if you just, basically I'm amping up certain things to compensate. And honestly, I don't necessarily say that with any sense of shame. It is what it is. I will just signpost, there is a phenomenon that Dr. Ghislaine Kinwani describes as epistemic homelessness. So that's the first phrase that she used. I'm going to explain what it means. That's the first phrase that she used. And then in some work that I co-produced with her, she expanded that into ontological homelessness. And basically what she means, she's describing a feeling. And so it's beyond a feeling. It's a state of being that is untetheredness, feeling of a lack of anchor. And again, just to be very clear, is Tony and I structured this talk in a way that we would introduce this is because I felt it would not be honest of me to walk away from here without at least referencing some of the things that have influenced my way of being and thinking while I've been in this space. And again, one of them is my experience with a hostile environment that meant that physically and legally, I was unstable in terms of where I could even, call home. At one point, nearly with physical homing. And yeah, so this state of feeling as if you are never quite home, I am aware, because of reading mostly loads of threads on Reddit, that loads of people have this feeling. And I want to be very careful how I say this, because this might not be the case for everyone, but often people tend to associate that with particular, with their neurochemistry. And that, I believe that has, that has played a role in my feelings, because some of these feelings have been present with me, honestly, since I can remember. So since I've had my first memories in my toddlerhood. At the same time, I think I now find myself, I just turned 39, and I find myself here at this point in life where I'm kind of like, I still don't feel like I'm home. I still don't feel like, I don't know if I have the ability to feel like home. But if I do believe that I have a couple more decades, God willing, on this plane of existence, how do I accept, or at least honor this feeling, as unpleasant as it is, and make the most of everything else that I have? So how do I, put out pumpkins before the August bank holiday and then not put these people off? And how do I do versions of that inside? And I don't have the answers, beloved. I really do not have all the answers. One of the reasons that I have decided to leave is because I feel like I'm still chasing something. A couple of you know, most of you know that I lost my mom early this year. A couple of weeks after being diagnosed with cancer. And of course, that did play a role in kind of like, oh my goodness, in all of this instability in my life, my representation of home, because oh my goodness, beyond being my mother, she exuded a solidness for so many people, not just her biological children, right? So here is a representation of home that goes away. So what do I do? Now, thinking about all of these layers of trauma, thinking about still having to work to pay my bills, still thinking about because I love being, sorry, it's a very capitalistic way of thinking. I love being productive. So how do you balance all of those things? And so making my plans to kind of step down, because I believe I've done what I needed to do here. I believe that I was here for a particular era, as I said. I've done what I had to do. I believe Watershed has done in me what it has to do, and now we part ways as friends. So where do I start? And I don't. Sorry, everything I'm saying, I don't even know if it makes sense. I did not rehearse this part, you know.
Great job.
But I will forever be grateful to one of my colleagues who gave me a phrase to use, and I think this phrase is a starting point. I keep going back to it, and it's Alex from our ICT department. We were having this conversation in our staff training day a couple of months ago, and you know, I was trying to use the analogy of an actual physical house and how, you know, the house has gone away because my mom is no longer here, and I saw her as home, and she was in a way my first home, right? Because she carried me. But then there's the discovery that actually, was she? I have always been my first home. And that's a bit of a cliche, but how do I find my way back to myself, and how do I feel comfortable within myself as a home? And Alex said, "Oh, you're your own welcome mat." And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so sweet. You know, so there are all of these beautiful analogies, but I don't know, what does it mean in practice? I don't really know. I think I'm just sharing with you all to say, you know, I feel very grateful that Bristol as a city, people here, and Watershed as a working place, and the studio have all provided home for me. I do hope that someday, you know, this will be, you know, a distant memory, but I'm also thinking about how not to think about that, right? How not to think about that. Does it, of course it matters, but in the grand scheme of things, is this where I want to, like, do I want to, as you can hear, I'm already pathologizing it. Like, do I want to continue this, or do I, again, just honor that this is one of the demons, in all honesty, that I need to defang and live with for the rest of my life? And how do I respect that and, you know, keep going and still kind of create joy and produce with people and love people and work and pay my bills and win the lottery and all of those things, and still, you know, hold space for those unpleasant things. Yeah.
Furaha, thank you for that. I think, well, as you were describing your mom there, I was like, these are things that you are doing here all of the time. I think absolutely you're practicing what you preach all of the time. There is all of the questions and the things that you're carrying and the things that you hold dear are things that we see in you every day. I really appreciate it. I moved to Bristol shortly before you did, and in very different circumstances to the ones, and my experience here has been very different. But I also talk about home a lot. I bang on about Birmingham all the time. If anybody wants to know about it, come and have a chat with me. But something I reflected quite a lot on being away from a network and a place where I'd lived for nearly 30 odd years, and I didn't know where the local shop where I couldn't walk out the house and know where to buy an aerial lead, and it used to really annoy me that I had to go Google out to. It was a really specific day that I had that did that. I think there's something about home in people, and home in the connections that you make and the communities that you exude in. And I was like, the definition of a friend is somebody who you can text on a Tuesday to tell them what you had for lunch. That's what I call a friend, like someone that, I've got nothing to say to you, but here, look, this is what I'm doing today. You do a thing where you text me pictures of things that you've seen in TK Maxx.
Yeah. Yes.
And I absolutely love it. My house, everybody, is full of tiny little astronauts with gold helmets that Furaha has populated my living room with over the years, because she knows that I like astronauts and gold things. And so every now and again, there's one on my desk when I get here. So when you're talking about building home and not feeling home, I hope that you see that home is, you are helping other people to create home in the space at the same time. So I hope that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that makes me feel really good. Thank you.
Don't stop sending me pictures of.
No, I won't.
Astronauts.
Never.
Thank you, Furaha.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I was going to say, when you find that new big TK Maxx in London that you're going to get, I bet it's huge as well, but it's like 6 floors or something. You're going to have
Just to say, people here know that I really, really love TK Maxx.
Yeah. Everybody knows, don't they? I guess this is a really lovely point to talk about what the future is, but rather than be like, Furaha, what's next for you? The question is, what's next for Watershed's future?
So, I can't answer that question in full. I don't even think the leadership team can, because this is such an interesting space to be in. I can say what I hope it will be, and what I can see that it's gearing up to be is that Watershed is recognizing what we contribute to research in this city, in our ecosystem, in the region, internationally. And I know that there are desires to kind of do even more of that. And again, I don't want to say give too much away and steal the thunder of the leadership team. But I will say that there is a lot of thinking that has gone into what a new research strategy will look like, and how that could potentially link up to other areas within Watershed, like between the studio and other departments in Watershed who are doing their own research. The comms department, the film department, the cafe bar, the kitchen, everywhere. And how can we make sure that there's more of this free flow of research thinking? And I guess the one thing that I can highlight is there is a project called Watershed Wild and Generous that thinks about, and that's being run by Rachel and Akshara. And Akshara is here. So any questions, please do feel free to ask her. And that is thinking about the stewardship of Watershed as a building and the surrounding areas over the next 100 years. So I think the best way for me to conclude this is to say that there's a thinking beyond ourselves. There's a thinking and there's an understanding that, of course, we're mortal, but at some point in time, perhaps the building will embody its own mortality. Maybe this is not what whoever is here in 100 years needs, right? So there is that thinking about what are we doing right now that can lay responsible foundations for what the future potentially could be.
Sorry, can't say any more than that. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Furaha.
Thank you, Tony.
So my last note today, I've already said that Furaha is one of my fiercest cheerleaders in life, not just in the studio. But something that I love about you is how you very explicitly talk about giving people their flowers. So I've got you some flowers, obviously.
Thank you.
This is for you as well. Here you go. These are for
Thank you, Tony.
And this is for you.
Thank you. I love you, Tony. Thank you so much.
You can open this one now if you want to.
Thank you. Oh, okay. I was instructed to open this now.
The orange one.
The orange one. Okay. Let's see what this is. I think I know. It's shortbread. Okay, so this is an inside joke. When I moved to Bristol, you might all remember that there was an M&S in Broadmead. And I always used to go to that M&S to buy, at that point in time, I always used to go into that M&S to buy, they had these shortbread fingers, and at that point in time it was £1 a pack. Now it's probably more than that. And at the end of 2021, I got an email that alerted me, so it's a little bit creepy, but also I did enjoy it, that alerted me that I was,
It's okay, it's all right.
I was the number 2 shortbread buyer in that particular M&S.
In that M&S or
in that M&S. No, in that M&S.
I mean, that's still impressive.
But that's not where it ends. Martin then got that engraved onto a little trophy, presented it to me. So yeah, this is why everybody knows I really, really love shortbread. And you know what? Just classic shortbread, no chocolate, no cranberries, nothing in it, just the plain shortbread. So thank you.
Thank you, lovely.
Thank you.
Team, I open it up to you for questions and thoughts and comments for Furaha.
Celia seems to leaping out.
Because I need to go. I need to run and then come back. So I just jumping into it. Thank you, Furaha, it's been an honor to work with you and to call you my friend now. You've been there for me, also being my cheerleader, and I think that can echo to a lot of people in the team. Thank you for that. I remember a couple of occasions where I was having a hard time, and you just got it. You just looked at my face and got it, and you were there with the space and grace and also actionables, both, and that's a very difficult balance. So my question for you is, if there's something you would like to share to us about leadership that you take with you from your experience here, what it means to you to be a good leader. I know it's a difficult question. It might be just one thing you would like to highlight. I will be very grateful. And thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think that, I know you said one thing, but it's a little bit hard for me to distill everything into one point. I think that what has made not just me, but the team quite a successful one over the past 5 years is the trust that has gone, as a kind of around the team. We've built and we've invested deeply into building trust. And I think that this is because, I think we all know what it's like if to experience having a person or an organization in power over you that basically they end up being your biggest op. And thinking, well, if I had that power, what would I do? So there's a mixture of thinking about what would I do and then directly asking. So when we started our line management relationships, we had conversations. How do you like to be line managed and how can we make this work in this team? So there's a balance between kind of bringing that in and then trusting them to be honest with me. And I do think that there is strength in recognizing that many times people on your team are actually smarter than you. Yeah, and not being intimidated by that. In all honesty, I have this joke, right? I always say to people that I've been Vanessa's manager, but she's my boss. I always say that. I think there is a strength really in recognizing when people are smarter than you and in being able to metabolize your feelings in such a way that it means that you're not scared of them surpassing you, right? Because what happens is then you become one another's legacy.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Sorry, it sounds a little bit pretentious, but that's true. And again, you may ask all the people that I've line managed, and they may come to you with different stories. But I want to believe, essentially, we're deeply invested in each other. We have advocated for one another, and I want to believe that when we step out of the room, we trust that we have one another's backs. So I'm interested to know, what do they say about me when I'm outside of the room? And I believe I know what they say. And I believe they know that I know what, sorry, you know what I'm trying to say. They know what I would say about them when they're not in the room. And that is what that trust is, right? So.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Furaha?
We've not worked together directly, but I think my practice has really, really benefited from the environment that you've cultivated here, blending creativity and research and finding a sweet spot between sort of creativity, curiosity, and critical thinking, which I think is something you said earlier. I wondered if you had any pointers or lessons that you could leave behind for people who want to carry on that work in other spaces.
Oh, wow, yeah. So just to say, I'm pretty sure that there will be some guidance that comes out. I'm just saying this before I offer you my own thoughts and suggestions, but I do think that there will be some more work and guidance that will come out of the studio in the near future that is focused on what our studio community, how to involve our studio community even more in the research that we do, and how to equip you all with just thought processes on how to advance your own research, how to advance your own methods, right, in research. I think just going back to those points, creativity and critical thinking, basically the bedrock of research is critical thinking. And kind of pushing yourself to think in novel ways. And I would challenge you in looking at your practice and in identifying where you're already doing research, where you don't recognize that you are. And then from there, building a map that kind of expands that practice. I mean, if that works for you. And a very useful way to do this, and the way that we've been doing it here in the studio, is asking questions. So gathering feedback from people that you view as your stakeholders. Do they understand the work that you're doing? What does it mean to them? What impact do you want that work to have? What does that work look like in 10 years? So asking yourself basic questions and then breaking those down literally into action points. And then those action points become your hypothesis. Does that make sense? Perfect. I'm still here for a week, so if you would like us to have a deeper conversation, I'm happy to do that.
Great. Vanessa, you can probably boss Furaha around.
No way. We haven't got very long left, so I'm going to leave the praise to private moments after the lunchtime talk. Well, you know what I mean. I've got a question about, so we obviously have had many deep conversations, and research is obviously one of them, and you've also championed the way people view themselves as researchers and what that means. And there seems to be a notion that knowledge is owned by specific people or entities generally in the world. So what do you think, if you could change one thing in the way R&D is funded at the moment in the ecosystem we operate in, what would it be? Like, what stands in the way? There's actually two different questions in a way, but why don't they get it?
Capitalism. Specifically white supremacist heteropatriarchal capitalism. Sorry, I'm literally just trying to kind of get my thoughts together. Money, trust, write the checks, open the purse strings. Even if all the work we're doing does not constitute research, does that really matter as long as it's doing for the community? And of course, community can mean different things to different people. But if it is doing for the community what it needs to be doing, resource it. That's not really an answer. But I guess what I'm getting at right now is in this particular paradigm that we operate in, money is the driver for everything, right? And therefore loosening some purse strings. And I'm trying to remember, I'll end on this. I saw a post from one of the researchers at Civic Square. I'm trying to remember their name. It was literally on LinkedIn. Imi?
Imi Core?
Yes, Imi.
Yeah.
So shout out Imi. Follow them on LinkedIn. Very, very brilliant individual. And it was literally just maybe 2 hours ago that I saw this on LinkedIn. And they were talking about how a lot of, I think in this case, it was organizations with large endowments. They said, put a minimum for the amount of money that you need and release the rest. And that was kind of the way they said. I was like, oh my goodness, so that makes sense. And I'm not suggesting that everybody needs to go the way of Langley Chase and abolish themselves, but there are loads of people who always speak about not knowing necessarily, loads of people, organizations, not necessarily knowing what to do with the funds that they have, with the power that they have. Okay, then give it away.
Who's having that problem?
I mean, spending decades creating committees to discuss how to sort problems and then creating subcommittees, just going around in circles of rhetoric. Just release the money. Sorry, that's not a very, that's
perfect answer.
It is. The first part especially. Thank you.
Thank you, VBS.
All right, I think that's all we got time for. So please join me in saying a very warm thank you to Tony and to Furaha. All right, before you all go and stuff your faces with the many, many donuts that Furaha brought, if you want to stick around in Hot Desk today or find out more about what we do, then please come find one of the studio team. We'll be happy to help. Studio team, give us a wave. There are loads of us here today. If you're watching online, please drop us a line on studio@watershed.co.uk with any questions. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Furaha, for being here for the last 5 years. And we'll see you all again next time.
Yeah.